So, everyone, how do you show up as a leader? We all know that the way that we're currently leading businesses is no longer fit for purpose, and we need a new model and we need to look to nature. So, I'm so excited to invite another guest onto the podcast this week, Sheila Belanger. And Sheila is a transformational coach. She works a lot with energetics of business and includes, I'm very excited, a lot of ancient wisdom in her thinking as to how we can help change the paradigm of business. And obviously, as business is going to change, then we have to change as well as leaders. So that's going to be the topic this week on impactful teamwork. Sheila, welcome to the podcast. Really excited to have you here today.
Thanks so much, Julia. I'm just so jazzed to be here. We've already had a little conversation. It's like, okay, let's go.
Yeah. Sheila, can you just start by just introduce yourself a little bit to the audience so they know a little bit about you so that we can set some foundations for what we're going to talk about over this half hour?
Beautiful. Yes. So I'm a transformation coach, as you said, Julia, and I have over 40 years of really working with navigating with people on the edge when they're in deep change in their life, personally, professionally. How do they resource themselves? And that's really my sweet spot. Navigating the edge, because if we can have inner resources as leader in our professional, personal, professional lives, we can go through the unknown more easily and not just collapse back into our old paradigms or old ways or old roles. So I love to resource people at the edge, whatever I'm doing on all the different hats I wear.
Yeah. And I think that's so important. For resource, one word we could put in there is to have resilience to lead through this at
Yes.
one level. And I think it's just fascinating that as we move through and businesses transform, leadership all starts with us. I talk a lot about self-leadership. How do you lead yourself? And as a leader, we need to be in the optimal state in order to lead others. So I love that you're helping leaders resource themselves so that they can be better. So perhaps you can share with us some of your top ways that you can start resourcing yourself as a leader, because this is a massive field, right? That you can play in, a
It's
massive
a very
sandpit that we can play in.
Yeah. One of the places I start is recognizing the paradigm we've been enculturated with in the Western world is way too limited for who we really are as beings. And here I'm talking about our spiritual, however people might see that, or energetic, or their love energy. And what happens is all of us keep running against these self-imposed limitations of shoulds. This is how we're supposed to be. And most of that is based on really the scientific revolution and the shift from nature and from our other ways of knowing that are not strategic. There's beautiful things that came out of the changes we made with the scientific revolution, but we also severed our mind and our being from nature and from cycles and from ancient wisdom. So one of the things I feel like leaders really can do and should do is activate other ways of knowing that are underneath their strategic mind. So things like what does my heart tell me, like emotional
Mhm.
intelligence, but also body knowing. A good leader has gut instinct.
Yeah.
And how do they cultivate that? What's my body? What are the vibes you had in your energetic podcast? The vibe of the room.
Mm.
As a leader, what are the vibes I'm picking up? Let me listen to that wisdom. And then the other way of knowing is imagination. That often
Mm.
when we have this, okay, here's the report, here's what I got to do, here's the remit, we cut off the imagination, which our ancient ancestors used so much as a place of empowerment to really visualize, pull on other ways of knowing. So that's one of the things I think a leader, an inner leader, really wants to do is cultivate other ways of knowing underneath a strategic mind.
Wow. Yeah. And if you think about it, you shared three there: gut instinct,
A heart, wisdom, intelligence,
and the
yeah.
emotional intelligence. Yeah, the emotional intelligence, and then the inter
Imagination, or
imagination.
what they
Gosh, yeah,
imagine,
yeah.
visualization.
So perhaps let's just dive into each of those just briefly. So, what would be, because we talk a lot in business about when people trust your intuition, trust your gut, listen to your heart, listen to your body, the somatic
Right.
experience. But it's one thing to say it, it's another to actually be able to do it. So, what would be some practical things that listeners
Yeah.
can implement to try and get in touch with these things? Because I think nowadays people are more open to it. Certainly since I left the corporate world in the last decade, a lot shifted around this whole area. people are definitely more open to this, but I love that there's a Zen saying that I use all the time: to know and not to do is not yet to know. And I think a lot of people know some of this stuff, but how do they embody it to be able to use it?
That is the key
Yeah,
question. The rubber meets the road, Julia.
absolutely.
I usually start with a lot of my clients, even in a coaching session. First thing, like the threshold coming in, okay, let's breathe. Let's get in your
Mm,
body. That's the first place you have to
yeah.
start is, am I in my body? So
Mm,
really practical things like say before a meeting for a Zoom call, take half a minute and just breathe and feel your butt on the seat or standing,
yeah.
feel your feet on the ground. Take a moment in whatever way is right for a leader, connect to the earth.
Mm,
Some of them, we have the privilege of having a window and looking outside, maybe at a tree. But first of all, am I in my body? That's the
mm,
first question. Get in your body first, okay? Because then you're activating your instinctual knowing. You're actually, it's like you're warming up your gut feeling to
mhm,
bring to whatever situation you're in as a leader. Second one is with the heart wisdom. It can be a little dicey because sometimes it can be rough and tumble with some political moves and leadership moves and so forth. So, in a person's own way, how do I gently touch into my heart in a way that I can live with, that it feels okay and is not too crazy in my organization? But really, sometimes it can just be like touch your heart for a moment. And that can be, you don't have to, no one has to
mm.
know what you're doing. Just take a breath, touch your heart. How am I feeling? It's like being good with yourself.
Yeah,
Because as you can get really upset, you can get triggered, all kinds of stuff can happen. But it's
sure.
just like, am I regulating with myself? Am I with my heart? And if the situation is supportive, like just listening gently, okay, what's my feeling right now? Or what's my emotional sense of the vibe of the
Mm,
room? So practical. And then with the imagination, you see this a lot with good leaders, like they'll look off in the distance, they'll pause. Oh, is take a minute to just let me take in what just happened. If I just fuzz my eyes, what am I seeing? What, or sometimes what's really great with our imagination, a memory comes back unbidden, or a song comes in,
mm.
which actually your wisdom is cueing you. Hey, I've got a message for you. And again, Julia, I am on the edge of woo. I know you said that in your other podcast. And woo can be really practical and
Yeah.
helpful. And so this is just a simple way. I hope it's helpful to say, here's a couple ways go
Mm.
to just try opening up your other ways of knowing, your more ancient way of knowing.
Yeah, and it's so interesting that it sounds so obvious, doesn't it? How to breathe, think about your breath. And yet, I know nobody teaches us how to breathe, but actually, there are ways of breathing properly. And I have to confess here, folks, I have been on a breathing course, I remember, to learn because I actually recognize that I breathe and I'm very shallow. I only use probably about half
Ah,
my lungs, right? And I don't ever get
yeah.
fully in, and it is so valuable as a way to activate the parasympathetic nervous system to just reduce stress and just get more grounded. And one of the great things about when I bring people out with the horses, Sheila, is that's one of the first exercises I get people to do because people are generally so in their head and that real crazy energy the horses just can't deal with.
Yes.
And it's also not safe because we get so in our head, we lose all periphery vision as to what's going on in the big picture. And
Yep.
if they're not careful, then somebody could get themselves into a problem because they're not seeing around what's going on. So it's always one thing I do get people to do is just get back in touch with their senses because we've become so visual and so in our minds that we've just got like blinkers on.
Totally. I'm with you. You're working with the horses. I love it because one of the things I remind my leaders is you're an animal also.
Yeah.
You forget that when we're walking around
Mm,
strategic mind focus. And animals are so good with their instincts, they can track danger.
mm,
And because they're here in their bodies, it's like, what's going on? So you're talking about with them, your leaders with the horses, but also as we know in the boardroom or in the
yeah.
meetings, there's danger sometimes. And if you've got more of that animal instinctual energy activated in you, it's a huge resource because you can kind of sense, I got to watch out for this. And I don't mean being in fear-based, but it's this deep instinctive wisdom that comes from our animal bodies that
Mm.
often we've been severed from again because of our conditioning. And it's too small for who we are.
Yeah. And I love that reminder that we're animals and we're part of the planet with everything else. And therefore, we are tuned and we are wired just like the animals. But like you say, we've just become so disconnected from those
Right.
natural instincts of how to lead and how to run our lives. And it's interesting. I was at an event yesterday and we had a speaker who was talking all about well-being. And again, when we were cavemen, right? There was ways we used to eat and we had to go and hunt for the food and we had to move. They didn't have a fridge to go and walk to and grab the food. And we've become so conditioned to all the things that we instinctively know what to do. We all know that we need to get out and move and exercise and eat
Right.
healthy foods. And yet it's like we've been brainwashed to eat sugar and sit
Mhm.
at desks all day.
That opens up a different door that I mentioned, and we'll see if it feels like it has juice, is the other part of resourcing yourself, like your inner leader, is taking care of the inner parts of you that shouldn't be leading. And what I mean by that is perhaps the ones that are still healing from trauma or the wounded inner kid. And they're all part of us. And I do have a strong depth psychology background, but I don't want to go, it's not necessarily let's be psychological. It's recognizing good stewardship like the ecosystem.
Mhm.
I love how you use that metaphor with your people. It's like our we are an ecosystem.
Yeah.
And we have all kinds of weather and moods and landscapes and inner figures. And some of them should not have the keys to the car as a leader.
Mm.
Okay. And so part of the inner resourcing is I say to my clients, who's got the keys to the car right now?
Mm.
Okay. Who's driving the bus? And so part of the resiliency is have I activated ways to track myself, first of all? Is my pissed off rebel up and trying to run the show? Is my wounded child up? And not, okay, what can I do to calm them down, tuck them in, and let the elder of me, the leader of me,
Mm.
the one who's following north, really be the one leading? And that's different ways that people can do that. Some people go the route of therapy and different personal
Mhm.
growth activities. But essentially, I bring it to my clients to recognize you also have to track yourself.
Mm.
Who of you in the ecosystem is leading right now?
Yeah.
Without any self-judgment, but get who's got those keys. And if it's not somebody who should be driving, get those keys back. Okay.
I love that. I love that analogy because we do forget, yeah, we forget that we're made up of multiple people effectively. And yeah, and who's leading and is it the right person leading at the right time? We talk a lot on the podcast about comprising a team of the right people
Right.
in the right time. But I never really thought about it as an individual is made up of lots of different people
Exactly.
that you got to have the right person leading at the right time. Yes.
Your
And
inner team. It's
yeah,
I love the analogy. 'Cause, yeah, you can get it all set up in your outer team, but what's happening with the inner team,
team.
right?
Yeah. And I know in an afternoon about this time, my inner child comes out. I want chocolate. I want chocolate. I know afternoons aren't greatly productive for me because I have this internal battle going on about how much sugar do I need, right? My inner child.
Yeah.
That's really.
And the beauty of it is just like in a good leadership team, how do you lead from the strengths? How do you
Mm,
resource your people so their strengths come forward? Totally parallel with inner work as an inner leader.
yeah.
Who are those ones in me that need chocolate or need time out or whatever they need so that the whole inner team can be effective and resilient and empowered?
Wow. Oh, this is so fascinating. I love this. So we were talking as well a little bit before we came on air about elements and personal growth, and you were talking about people have different elements that lead as well, related to what we're talking about here about the different personas.
Yeah.
So let's just delve into a little bit about that. Perhaps you can share with us a bit more about how you see elements working within people.
Yeah, thank you. And again, Julia, I love the resonance we have of nature-based and elemental. You did
Mm,
that whole podcast on the five elements. And so I'm using a slightly different system
yeah,
and really looking at it's the elemental spirals for me and the way I work with my people is what is really your edge right now? What's your archetypal edge elementally? So I put the different elements with different seasons in the main work. So if
right.
I start with earth, I have that connected to summer. I call it rooting in the sacred. root in the sacred. And sacred is whatever a person would
Mhm.
identify. But basically, are you grounded? Are you knowing you belong to Mother Earth? Are you in your body? And how
Mhm.
do you root into that which feeds you and nourishes you? Like summer, right? Everything is full of life. And then moving to autumn, I put the water element there, and I call it reclaim your inner sovereignty. And this to me is the season when you're really doing deep emotional work appropriately,
Mm.
because we're
Yeah.
talking about leadership in business. But essentially, what do you need emotionally so that you're in your sovereignty? And what are the old narratives, the old patterns, the old conditioning, professionally, personally, that are too small that you need to wash away? You need to release
Mhm.
and just let that go. And then in the air element, I put with winter, and I call that navigate the edge, where you really are more in that place of wisdom, of recognizing the big picture and saying, okay, what needs to happen here? So me, my team, inner team, outer team, can navigate the deep changes we're in right now. So it's really recognizing with frameworks and capacity and resiliency, how do I do that? And then fire, I put in spring because, and I call it alchemize the old. And it's that
Mhm.
when spring comes, everything's back with life and it's bursting forth and it's fiery. And this sense of, okay, there's old stuff that needs to burn.
Mm.
The alchemize, I need to take that dross, I need to take the old stuff and metabolize it so that I get this renewal, this like
Mhm.
phoenix energy coming. And then the fifth element, ether, is in all of them. And it's really about embodying the change and being
Right.
in this strong, resilient leadership. So it's a model, a map, because it's just a map. I really help people say, not to limit them, but where am I? What elemental energy
Mhm.
am I really in right now? And how could I lean in and support myself in my personal growth, in my inner leadership
Mm.
around that particular element or that particular season? And as usually, there's so many maps that are
Yeah.
available, and use one that works, but recognize it's still just a map.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just giving a direction and a framework. And in your perspective, can people be in multiple seasons at the same time? Or yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And what often happens, I don't try to pin it down with a client. What I find is if I'm coaching especially or I'm facilitating, there'll be a sense of this is
Mm.
the strong one. This is the one that's really working me or I'm working with
Mhm.
strongly. Absolutely, because we're not linear beings. That's the whole thing. Both of us being nature-based, it's cyclic, people.
Mm. Yeah, yeah.
It ain't A to B to C, people.
No.
So yeah.
Yeah, and what and when you think about the whole world, what's so interesting, isn't it? It collectively across the whole world, you've got winter happening in different winters happening and springs happening somewhere else, and we've got all
Right,
the seasons
right,
happening
right,
simultaneously globally as the collective.
right.
With it, but within one country, aka one person, there's probably mainly in one until you go into the transition. Oh wow, that's
Yeah.
really I'd never thought about people in seasons, but it makes so more sense. And you were talking there at the beginning about working on the edge with people. So that's typically people in that kind of autumn winter then season when we're thinking about the next chapter or not necessarily, or does that not
Actually,
necessarily tie
any
together?
No, for me, I don't see it as more the edge is really, for me, the definition is your old life is over in some way and you know it, right? Personally, professionally, old roles, old identities. And the juiciness about the edge, Julia, is we don't know who we are. We don't know where we're going. And that makes us really destabilized. And so, what most of us do as we're conditioned is we just go back and say, it's too scary because I don't know where I'm going. I don't know where my team's going, where my org's going. And so I'm just going to fall back to the old way. Typically, things like this marriage is good enough,
Mhm.
this job is good enough, right? And yet we're stifling that deeper soul calling for change. So when a person is the old ones used to call it the betwixt and between place. Don't know who I am. I'm not that anymore. I don't know where I'm going. And how do you bear the tension of the not knowing to follow what your soul is calling you, your mission or your vision is calling you? And edge work is collective right now because we really collectively, where are we going? We're not who we were, or we're seeing examples of who we were and going, this is too small for our world and our people. And so to me, we can be at any time in our life, personally, professionally, on the edge, but particularly leaders right now, because we know things are changing so fast. The old paradigms are done. And how to resource a leader to edge walk personally and professionally, to say, we don't quite know, but we're going here, and let's bring our resources together and let's go find out, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I so resonate with everything that you're saying, given where I am personally right now. So I'm like, oh my gosh, this so
Yeah.
resonates with me. But it's
I'm on the edge, Sheila.
yeah, I am on the edge right now, that's for sure. Uh, and it's interesting about how do you navigate that because you know that you're on that edge, and as leaders, we know that we need to change and do something differently. But like you say, it's scary. We don't want to step into that, and it's so easy to get consumed and subsumed back into where we were. And so, because you're
Right.
stepping, it's literally that edge walker. You're stepping off the edge of the mountain and you're not quite sure what's there to
Yeah.
catch you. And you're like, I've just got to trust that whatever my instinct is telling me to do right now, I'm going to do.
Right.
And I don't really know why
Right.
I'm doing it, but that's what I'm doing. And that
Right.
messes
And
with our logic. Sorry.
yeah, and that's no, that's great, Julie, because that comes back to what you and I talked about, which is how the inner teamwork is. How do I resource myself so I can bear the unknown?
Mm,
And this is, yes, absolutely, you have to resource your team. So all your team as much as possible. Can we make this turn? Can we pivot? Can we go forward? At the same time, for the leader especially, how am I resourcing myself at the edge? So
mhm,
the ones of me that would freak out and collapse me back into the old way, let's not have
mm.
them have the keys to the car.
Yeah.
So it's really about inner resourcing in whatever way that works for people. Like for some, it's certain kind of personal growth issues. Others, it's good diet, good exercise, get out and have a walk with the dogs, right? Everyone has their own way of inner resourcing, and it's really essential now. And I think for modern leaders, you have to, because we're in such a huge collective edge, it's not going away. So how to be resourced for these times?
Yeah, and I think for leaders, it's leaders feeling that they have permission to go and resource themselves, right? Because we're so
Yes.
busy and I've got to get this deadline, I've got to do this and I've got to do that. And that taking time for self feels a little bit self-indulgent, and yet it's
Right.
the best thing we can do for everyone around us, for our team members, for our family members, for our relationships and everything else. But it's such a kind of juxtaposition of doing this with this.
I'm laughing, Julie, because two things immediately come to mind. Do you do maintenance on your car if you have a car? You know what happens if you don't change the oil.
Yeah.
It's like, what happens, right? The car stops in the middle of the motorway because you haven't, it's a hello, maintain the engine, okay, type of thing. But also, it comes back to coaching. I can't tell you how many leaders, particularly C-suite, some of the ones I've worked with, is sometimes that hour with coaching is breathing time.
Yeah.
They finally have a space where they can just slow down and have a good professional witness support them and hold space for them to catch up with themselves. Sometimes as a coach, that is the most important thing you're offering your
Yeah.
client, is that kind of pause time. Let me catch up with myself, which is a radical sense of self-care, but essential
Mm.
to resource the leader.
Yeah. Because we just look at the statistics about the number of people, particularly in the US, that don't take all of their vacation time. We see it more, and companies actually now paying people to make sure they take their vacation time, right? Because we know the importance of people having to step away and rest and recuperate.
Right.
Most people probably listening to this podcast can relate. The minute that we get away, we just, but then we're still picking up this phone and working on our holiday, and we're never
Yes.
really
Yes.
disconnecting from what's going
Right.
on.
Right.
And I always love the analogy I always use with clients. It's this: put your own oxygen mask on first. If your business is the plane and it's going through some tough times and some turbulence, you need to get your own oxygen mask on first so you can help your team and all your stakeholders and everyone else around you. And if you're not in the best
Exactly.
optimal shape to do, yeah, we're just not serving people in the
Yeah,
best way we could. But
absolutely.
oh, I'm really reflecting on this very hard, but given this, the speaker I was listening to yesterday at a conference I was at, where we were just talking about what's the people's biological age versus their actual age, and how what we see on the outside isn't necessarily what's going on in the inside. And I remember about God, I don't know if I should share this. Oh, I will. I remember about 12 years ago, I did a whole load of tests when I was living in the US, and my biological age 12 years ago was 101, which showed
Oh,
how bad my internal systems were.
oh,
And I did a lot of
wow.
work back then to reset the baseline. And I'm a bit scared to even look at it now, because this is what this speaker was talking about, to actually figure out what your actual energy and vitality is like. And this is the biggest gift we can give people, is our energy and vitality. And we can only do that when we're present and grounded and in the room and really paying attention to what's going on and really seeing, so that we can help support and guide and give some stability to the people around us, right? If we're a rocking, sinking ship, you can't provide that buoyancy to anyone else around you. So it's so important. Wow. Sheila, this has been such an interesting conversation. I know that you had some resources that you wanted to share with people. And what's
Mm,
some final great takeaway that we can give everyone? That's something they can go.
okay. I'll, thank you, Julie. I'll riff off. Steward your inner team. Okay,
Yeah,
steward your inner team.
love
You
that.
can be really good about, okay, my team members externally, what's happening with the inner team?
Mm,
And a little mantra they could ask themselves, who's driving the car right now? A little bit of self-tracking. Who's driving the car right now? And attend to, if someone's got the keys who shouldn't be, how do you respectfully get them back? Okay. And then thank you. My website is ontheedgesofchange.com.
oh, love that.
Ontheedgesofchange.com. Yeah, that's my sweet spot. And
Yeah,
if people go to the homepage, they'll see a link. I have a free elemental spiral quiz, which continues with what we talked about, to just get you an assessment, like what element is really guiding you right now. And it gives some information on that element and the place you're in with it, and other resources to go further with it if they like.
fabulous. Oh, Sheila, I have so enjoyed this conversation. It's so nice to speak to a fellow sort of on the edge, understanding the importance of nature, what we can learn with nature, how that applies to business, and all the kind of ancient wisdom and alchemy that's out there that we've all got access to, that we can just leverage if we're just brave enough to be open to think outside of the
Yes.
box. And I think that's maybe where some people are stuck. We've been so conditioned that we don't want to look up and see that there are other ways of looking at the world and the way that we interact in it and we play. And remembering that we are an ecosystem as an individual, and we all play part of the business ecosystem of the interdependence and interconnectedness that exists.
Absolutely.
In the show notes, everyone, will leave you Sheila's contact details, and I really will encourage you to go and take her quiz on the spiral energetics. I know that's something I'm going to be doing right now. So thank you so much, Sheila, for your time, sharing your wisdom and a completely different insight from what we often do on the show. But I hope everyone's found that really useful, because I think it's so important, as we as leaders just remember to look after ourselves and get more insight into how we're showing up, so that we can show up the best of our team. So my
Yeah.
invitation to you this week is, what are you going to do this week to start taking a bit of self-care for yourself, so that you can show up differently in the workplace in the best version of you that's possible? So until next week, everyone, have a great week. And Sheila, once again, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Julia.
You're so welcome.
Thank you.